A look at before and after historic rain and snow. This is what Folsom Lake looked like back in August. You can see little islands forming as the lake level continued to drop, and in some places in Northern California to historic lows. And then check it out here in mid-January, the lake looking full and things in a much better direction here as we've headed through 2 years of drought, starting to see things improving ever so slightly. Here's what the Northern California reservoirs look like right now. Capacity coming up slightly. Now, this isn't necessarily the time of year that we'll see huge gains in our reservoirs. That typically comes in March, April, and even into May as well. So Shasta, our biggest reservoir, at 35% full. Everywhere else, about 45 to over 55% full. But we're running slightly above average for places like Folsom. It's a smaller reservoir, so it tends to come up much quicker than, say, Shasta, which is a much bigger reservoir at 55% of average. Certainly much better than where we were earlier in the year, especially as we dug deeper and deeper into drought, August and even September, before those historic rains came in October. Our Sierra snowpack also showing big improvements. Early January of 2021, not looking too good. Everything really brown. And then fast forward 1 year, the valley greened up and Sierra snow really piling up for much of the high country, with historic and record-setting snow in December. Had over 200 inches of snow at the Sierra Snow Lab up near Soda Springs, and that was proving some real good promising news for our drought. As far as where we sit right now in our average, about 100 to 115% of average, and I'll be real honest with you, this is really starting to tick down here every day we continue on this dry stretch. Rainfall looking pretty good as well. We have anywhere from about 8 to over 16 inches of rain, putting us well above average, about 2 inches to over 7 inches above where we should be at this point in the year. Keep in mind, though, January and February tend to be our wettest and snowiest months of the year. So when we head through a January like this with very little rain, it doesn't do great things for our drought. But we have made improvements. Again, early in the season, this was early in October, we had about 88% of the state covered in extreme drought. That's going to be the most critical category. And now no part of the state is in that exceptional drought, and extreme only covering 1.4% of the state. All parts of the state are still in drought, and conservation is still the message here, but we've seen nice improvements. Not much of an improvement, in fact, basically status quo here week to week. We didn't see any changes, and that's because we're in the middle of this dry stretch. So again, we continue to basically put the messaging out of conservation, because we're going to need 140% of average to get out of this drought. So far for Sacramento Executive, we've had 14.42 inches of rain. To get to 100% of average, we need about 3 3/4 inches of rain. That would get us to slightly over 18 inches, but normal is not going to be enough, because remember, it took us 2 years of drought to get where we are right now. We're going to need about 25, almost 25.5 inches of rain to get us out of significant drought conditions throughout the Central Valley. Currently, we're on day 21 of this dry stretch. Last year, we had 22 days, but looking back at those big drought years, 2014, 2015, we had 48 days without significant precipitation. The other thing to look at, too, is this whiplash that we've been seeing. We had record rain from one storm in October, 6 and almost 3/4 inches of rain. Virtually nothing came through in November. And then December, again, record-setting rain and snow through parts of California with almost 7 inches at Sacramento Executive. But here we are in January, again, one of our wettest months typically, and we've had 5/100ths of an inch of rain. Now, that holds true as well for the Central Sierra Snow Lab. You can see out at UC Berkeley, their monitoring site up there in the high country. Big gains in December, and then we absolutely flattened out in January. Almost nothing has come through here. We had a little system come through early in the season, or early in the month of January, but that was about it. Now, the other part of this component is how much water is being sucked out of that snowpack. What is the evaporation rate? Well, the thirst of the atmosphere is running higher and higher each day. We've had some warm temperatures come through, sunny skies, and so what we're looking at here is right along the Sierra spine is that evaporation rate is starting to go up. So that Sierra snowpack that we saw early in the season isn't necessarily going to equate to a whole lot of water coming down the hill. And we're going to see a little bit higher evaporation rates going on as well Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, with north winds and offshore winds developing for the Sierra. Sierra, those are really dry. So again, the thirst of the atmosphere going up under this ridge of high pressure and that low kind of moving into the Great Basin. That is something that we're going to continue to watch. As far as the long range outlook, it is wetter than average just off to our east here, but California looks pretty neutral in terms of any significant signs of whether we'll turn the tide to more wetter conditions over the next 8 to 14-day period. Below average temperatures are possible, and that would certainly help from keeping that evaporation rate from going up too much higher. But right now, storm track not looking too favorable to get things going here in Northern California.